broadcast where I'm talking about my...
That's why I told you first.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you'll never know.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Mysterious.
Kind of like that wonderful story about Mick Foley
there
happened with Joey. That
there is no story.
Have we told that story yet?
There is no story.
Okay, there's no story yet. Okay, awesome.
Hey, Mike, how's it been?
It's been all right, man. It's been all right. Long days. 5 a.m. comes early, but I still managed to watch every show on our list, including the pay-per-view. And I will go ahead and tell everyone this. The pay-per-view got spoiled for me because even though I have...
the network?
Sometimes I don't get to watch the pay-per-view Sunday nights. I've got something else going on, so I usually catch it later, or I watch them Monday. And
everybody was very excited to share the news.
Well, even though I have turned off everything, and I've unsubscribed and tried to stop suggestions and everything... this wonderful little device likes to tailor things to your liking. So when I click on news and it shows me sports news, and anything that covers sports news covered that pay-per-view. So the pay-per-view got spoiled for me, but we will talk about it today.
And what were we talking about? Well, you're just going to have to wait till we get there. All right, welcome to...
You don't know shit, Will? That is okay, because we are going to educate you tonight, sir.
All right, so as always, we're going to start. We do have a couple weeks worth of... interviews. So if you enjoy what you see, make sure you like, share, subscribe on the Facebook and on the YouTube. And as you saw, I had a lot of stuff come out this week. My goal is My goal is that next week's show will be caught up. That's my goal.
Good deal, man. If you guys haven't seen, definitely check out our YouTube page. Joey put a hell of a lot of work in it this week and banged out
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 shows, man. It's awesome.
So we will be caught up by next week. All right, and without Kevin, announcer dude, what do you got?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Powerbomb Weekly. Tonight, we're breaking down the most over and underrated wrestlers, moves, matches, and more. And now your hosts. First, the most underrated host, underrated, like a Bret Hart sharpshooter. It's Michael Burdett. And his tag team partner, overrated, like a Hulk Hogan clothesline. It's Joey Marcello. And now, off to the show.
All right. Oh, man, Kevin just gives you the business every week, and I love him for doing that. So thank you very much, Mr. Kevin, for that wonderful intro again. That is right, guys. We're going to be talking about the over and the under. Who is the most overrated? What is the most underrated that we've seen? We're going to talk about people. We're going to talk about moves. We're going to talk about matches. Joey has got some wonderful poll lists that he has pulled up. I compared some of the things that we looked at, and I noticed that the wrestling seems to favor... Obviously, WWE content is going to be heavily cited because it's what most people know. And then on top of that, I noticed a lot of the lists started looking exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So I want to go ahead and fire off with a name that is not on my list, but I wanted to talk about.
Well, before you do that,
okay.
So I am no longer going to get multiple lists and try to compare them. I'm just going to find the most recent list I can find, and I will always tap the source. And I want to find lists that have fan voting instead of just some dude's opinion in a basement, much like this one.
So yeah, our basement's nicer. Yes, I think our studio basement is much nicer.
Well, I don't live with my mom, so
that's true. Yes, but your dad does live with you.
This is true.
Yeah, so it's like a weird quasi-reverse.
So what do you got on your list?
So, well, one, I wanted to throw this name out because it gets tossed around a lot.
Over or under?
This is going to be over.
Overrated.
Overrated. I know it's probably on the list.
Probably.
Because there's really 3 people that always get on the list. But Lex Luger. I want to talk about Lex real quick.
Lex Luger is...
He's usually in the top 3 to top 10.
So this is the top 25 by top 10 websites. The top 10's website. This list is dated the July 16th of 2020. And he's not on the list. He's not in the top 25.
I already don't believe this list.
Overrated.
every list is always got Lex Luger on it. And I just want to know, where does Lex fall for you? Because I honestly put Lex almost in an underrated category. Because Lex had a great body. He was an amazing athlete. And I think he was part of some of the most important WCW Monday night, especially late 80s, mid 90s matches, especially him with Stinger,
he was important, but was he good?
Stuff like that. I mean, the thing with that is that I think people tend to quantify wrestling, ability and take away everything else. Like Hulk Hogan is usually in a lot of these lists. How can you say Hulk Hogan is overrated when Hulk Hogan is like, what, the number 2 or 3 box office draw in the history of wrestling?
Hulk Hogan is number 2 on the most overrated wrestlers on this list.
Another guy, Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior is usually up there. Yes, the Ultimate Warrior was an awful wrestler.
Number 10.
I love the Warrior. Most people know this. He's probably one of my top favorites, but he's always in this list because his wrestling ability sucked. He didn't love the business, and to a point, he might not have been the best human being at times in his life.
Right.
But
his wife loves Seth Rollins.
Yes, and his wife is a wonderful... Have we told that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, go back and check our archive for the Seth Rollins and Dana Warrior story that we have, and seeing her...
I believe it was in Meet the Fellas.
Ooh, her adulation for Seth on that show was awesome. But Macho Man is... Will's bringing up Macho Man. Macho Man should be... I think Macho Man's just in the conversation of greatest, He's not over, he's not under, he's just in the category of greatest, like Ric Flair, like
he is not on
Brian Pillman.
He is not on an overrated list. Macho Man, Randy Savage is not on the list.
Bret Hart, Steve Austin, a lot of these guys are going to be in the best lists,
Right.
So that's why it's like, I noticed with a lot of these lists when I was doing my research, they tend to follow the same guys.
There's probably a reason for that. What do you quantify someone as overrated?
Well,
somebody, in my opinion, an overrated person who gets lots and lots of adulation and lots of press and lots of TV time
and a push
and money, but doesn't deserve it because he doesn't have what it takes. Even though somebody's got his hand up his butt using him like a puppet.
Okay. All right. So now we know kind of an idea of where our lists are going to be at, okay? So let's dive into this, and let's take a look at these lists. And do you want to start with over or under?
I want to do overrated.
You want to do overrated for people, okay? I picked 5. Joseph picked 3.
Right, and I don't have these in any type of order.
So I actually ordered mine in my personal opinion of what I think these guys are. So I'll tell you what. I will go 5-4.
Okay.
We'll discuss if you want to, and then we'll do our countdown.
And we'll compare.
Number 5 for me, Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio, number 19 on this list.
I think Rey is a good talent. I think Rey is very unique. But aside from getting lawn darted into a trailer by Kevin Nash, and unfortunately, Eddie Guerrero dying, I can't really think of anything significant that Rey Mysterio has truly done.
I agree. He's got like 5 moves.
His size obviously has hampered what he can do. The believability of what he can do with bigger guys takes a lot of that out of there. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, yes, he's kind of got the same 5 moves of Doom.
I agree. Rey Mysterio is overrated.
Number 4 on my side of the list, Mr. Anderson, Ken Kennedy. I think he was so overrated. I think he was built up super huge for WWE. He never paid off. They always claimed injury prone. He had some substance problems that happened with Bob Holly that they've talked about, which caused him to get fired. And when he went to TNA, they just straight billed him as this redneck asshole Steve Austin ripoff. And I just never believed that he should have gotten what he got. He was mid-Carter at best.
So I remember Mr. Kennedy. I didn't watch TNA for Mr. Anderson, although I have seen Dad and I will watch some of the old N60s, the old Impact shows, stuff like that. So I'm familiar with him. He's not on the list for in this list, but I did see him on other lists when I was doing the research to find the most recent list I could find.
Yeah.
And I can see that.
I was never sold on Ken Kennedy, which leads me into my number 3.
Okay.
And I want to get your opinion on this, because my list is going to maybe get a little controversial, but a little obvious towards the end. Jeff Jarrett.
I
I find Jeff Jarrett to be very overrated, and I say this, I love Jeff.
Right.
I really do. But I think in WCW, his friendship with Russo caused him to get a huge push that he didn't deserve, didn't earn, and should not have played out on television. He should never have been their world champion. As much as I dislike what Mike Graham was, I do agree with the statement he makes on the death of WCW of he broke 1 million guitars and he never drew a damn dime.
So, Jeff Jarrett, number 18 on the list. I do remember when I was underway and the X and the kids were all excited about the savior of WCW who's going to save them from the NWA, or the NWO.
Yeah.
And it was Jeff Jarrett. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, he's got some skill. He can wrestle.
He can talk, you know.
He's got some talk. I didn't catch that because I was underway and I wasn't I was focusing on WCW, not on WWE. I didn't know about him trying to make the comments he made about China and on his way out the door.
Yes, because they essentially a little bit of background is they wanted him to drop the belt to China, and he said, "No, that's dumb." And they said, "You're going to do it," and he said, "Fine, you're going to pay me a fuck ton of money to get this belt off me to drop it to China."
Right.
Which they did on the show.
Which they made a domestic house match or something like that.
It was super weird, and I think Road Dogg got involved, and then Road Dogg ended up leaving as well too because he was basically with Jeff. So yeah, that was super weird.
Yeah, I can see where he's overrated.
I think Jeff is a great mind for the business. I think he's a good talent, but him
kind of
getting the championships, getting the pushes that he got, getting the praise that he gets for Jeff Jarrett, I never bought into it.
So you got Jeff
Slapnuts. I hated Slapnuts.
Slapnuts. I wish I would have had the sound.
I know the sound bar would have been great.
But so I see what you mean because you had the Honky Tonk Man, and then you had Jeff Jarrett, and then now you have Elias. I mean, it's just the same gimmick, kind of retread.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right, I'll give you that. So my number 3.
Number 3 for Joseph.
The Bella Twins.
Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and go right to the top.
No, that's number 3 for me. Oh, actually, was that my number 1 or my number 3? I guess that was my number 1. Sorry, my number 3 was Randy.
Fucking hell. Okay.
Number 3, Randy Orton.
Okay, Randy Orton was almost going to be on my list, except for the fact of I don't know. I still feel there's greatness with Randy.
Randy, 20 years ago, awesome.
Yeah.
Randy now has done nothing to reinvent himself. He's in the ring.
Randy,
right now in the ring, he's dialing it in.
Yeah, he's dialing in pretty hard. I mean, granted, what they're giving you right now, I don't blame you. Why work any harder for what they're giving you? I mean, Randy, for me, it's just like, I feel like he's in the wrong... There's guys that come along in wrestling that are just in the wrong time period, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think if Randy would have come along in 92, 93, with heart and had that body and that look and that style and that work ethic that he had, I think he would have floundered in that weird spot with like Brett and Shawn in it. I feel that he could have worked in that spot and we would be talking about him in the same vein as Brett and Shawn instead of kind of like, he's like Kiss at this point. He's outlived his usefulness. He just needs to go away.
Yeah.
You know?
At least for a little while.
Yes.
So, and Randy Orton was number 13 on the top 25 most overrated wrestlers.
So, number 2 for me.
Yeah, yes.
Because we did 3, you did 3,
yeah.
I'll do 2. Psycho Sid Vicious.
Psycho Sid Vicious. Number 7 on the list.
I like Sid. I've met Sid. He is a massive human being. He's in incredible shape, but I never liked... I can't really say I never liked Sid, but I never saw world champion in Sid. You know? I mean, now granted, the way he looked, there was nothing else you could do with Sid other than make him a world champion. But as we've come to find out from a lot of the Shoot podcasts, Sid liked softball. That's where his passion was to play softball. So that's why Sid was always gone in the summer times, is because, well, that's softball season. And he would claim an injury or claim this or claim that, drop a belt back to Shawn, and he'd disappear for 4 or 5 months so he could go play softball.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So Sid, I thought he was extremely overrated. He didn't have a lot of movesets. I aside from him working with Shawn or working with Hogan, I can't really think of an important Sid match other than the one where he broke his leg in half. You know, can you pull out a great Sid match out of your head right now?
No.
Other than, like I said, other than Shawn or the Hogan match.
No.
All right, so number 2 for Mr. Joseph.
Number 2, Hulk Hogan. Number 2 on my list here. Hulk Hogan was, I give the man what he had.
Back this show up about 8 minutes, guys, and you will see my opinion on what Hulk Hogan was. Hulk Hogan is one of the biggest box office draws of all time. He's one of the best characters of all time. He's got longevity with it. He is essentially an institution for what is wrestling. I think putting him in an overrated list is markish, in my opinion.
Markish?
I think it's super markish to put him
Markish?
in the list. Yes. Yeah, shots fired, man.
Markish.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's 2 opinions here.
Don't
The
get me
right one
wrong.
and his.
Don't get me wrong. That doesn't work for me, brother. And on top of that, all the excess stuff, without going way too deep, Google Hulk Hogan, you'll know what we're talking about when we talk about his extra stuff. But even, things like that, the way he talked about people when you caught him on the cell phone stuff with, him and Nick when he was in jail and stuff, the way he talked about people, the way he's treated people, the way he's been perceived by other people, even with all that, the persona of Terry Bollea to Hulk Hogan, I think Hulk Hogan deserves his spot as one of the greatest of all time.
And here's why he doesn't.
Okay?
Because 90% of his fame and his adulations was manufactured by his own ego.
You have to be your best salesman. If you're not your biggest fan, then nobody else is going to be.
That's true. Yeah. However, when you write it, he had lots of charisma, no wrestling ability.
He could wrestle a match.
It was said it in the intro. I was compared to a Hulk Hogan.
But let's see this. AEW claims that Vince stole them from him when he was about to break, which caused AEW a massive collapse. He kickstarted the Rock and Wrestling. He kickstarted WWF. Sorry, AWA.
Okay.
Sorry, AWA. They had that. They pop him with the WWF. He starts to go down. He jumps ship. He reignites WCW, sets it on fire. And anytime, and given the fact that they bring him back so often now, despite of everything else, now that he's back in the company's good graces, it seems, he pops a rating. Yeah. They will always tune in to see what Hogan's going to do.
Speaking of which, ask me what SmackDown's rating was later.
Number 1.
I'll go first.
Joey got it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. The Bella Twins.
I have a tie between the Bellas and Sable.
Sable was on my list.
So I had to split that because, honestly, these 3 people in wrestling are some of the worst, most overrated, most heavily pushed people that I could quantify that did not deserve the spot that they were given.
Agree. Sable was original. If I would have done a top 5, Sable would have been in there somewhere. Because I thought hard. And interestingly enough, Sable does not show up on this list, nor does the Bella Twins. I think they were number 26. So
okay, but still, the Bellas and Sable, in my opinion, absolutely overrated and not necessary.
Okay. So do you want? I'll go through this list real quick.
Let's go.
Quick. So 25, Dean Ambrose. Yay or nay? Just a yay or nay.
Nay.
Overrated or just is he overrated?
No, he's not overrated.
I agree.
He's garbage right now, but he's not overrated.
Big Show.
No,
I don't.
Nobody looks like that.
Andre the Giant.
No, absolutely not.
Finn Balor.
No. I saw this list. I thought this list was bullshit. I'm remembering these names.
Steve Austin.
Fuck you. Fuck this list.
RVD.
Maybe RVD would be overrated.
Rey Mysterio, you already said. Jeff Hardy.
Maybe Jeff.
Jeff now, yes.
Even Jeff then. Jeff had a very limited moveset, and he was basically known for doing crash car spots.
Was Goldberg overrated?
No, Goldberg's rated where he should be at.
CM Punk.
No, he's not overrated.
Edge.
No.
The Undertaker.
No. Go back and watch our Taker show.
Randy Orton.
We talked about.
Brock Lesnar.
I almost put him on my list, but it's kind of in the same vein of, like, almost in Way of Hulk. Nobody looks like Brock. Nobody does like Brock. And unlike some of the other names that we talked about, I can pull out 5 Brock Lesnar matches off the top of my head of holy shit, go watch this
Roman
match.
Reigns.
No. Time will tell.
Ultimate Warrior.
Yes, Ultimate Warrior would be overrated, despite what I said earlier.
Daniel Bryan. Absolutely not.
No,
Daniel Bryan does not belong in the top 10.
Daniel Bryan was, for 10 years, was one of the top 10 greatest wrestlers in the entire world before he ever stepped foot in the WWE ring.
So, top 10, Ultimate Warrior. Number 9, Daniel Bryan. Number 8, Batista.
Yeah, I would put Batista's overrated.
Number 7, Psycho Sid. Number 6, Kevin Nash.
Absolutely overrated.
Number 5, The Great Khali.
Almost my number 1, except for I couldn't put him there just because I can't say he's overrated. We have put him in the place he needs to be in.
Number 4, The Rock. The Rock is not overrated.
No, I can't say The Rock's overrated.
He has had... Number 3, Triple H.
Everybody loves to pick on H.
Number 2, Hulk Hogan. And the number 1 most overrated superstar, according to Top 10 website, is John freaking Cena.
No, John Cena is not overrated. Absolutely not. No.
What makes him not overrated, in my opinion, is he knows he has the 5 moves of doom. He calls it himself, and his charisma, and he has had good matches. We've seen him good matches. And based on the first SummerSlam we ever watched together, he's a hell of a bumper.
He is.
15.
Man, yeah. And on top of that, here's a quick divulge with John, and I know we're trying to kind of...
We still got 15 minutes.
But here's the thing with that. John Cena, and I know the comparison is obviously going to be there. I kind of look at John Cena like Superman, and I know Super Cena is the joke for it, but it's like everybody says Superman's overrated, he's overpowered, he's this, he's that, and stuff, right? I've always looked at it as somebody has to be Superman.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be the guy.
Okay.
You know, and that's kind of what I look for Cena to say. Who else, if you look around in that locker room at that time, for the length of time that they've had it, who was the guy? Because some of those names you mentioned on the list, they were gone during his entire tenure when he was on top. You know? Mm-hmm. And unless it was going to be Randy, which Randy had his own things that took himself out of being in that position, Cena had to be that guy for that time period, for that company, and I don't think there was anybody else they could have picked except for Cena. So overrated, no, Cena is not overrated. I'll put him in fucking underrated at this point.
Okay. So, your number 5, underrated.
We'll go quick. Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome was an absolute badass. He was legit. He looked like a tank. And his career was destroyed because of Vince Russo with the Fat Chick Thriller and Mike Awesome, that 70s guy where they tried to capitalize on the 70s show stuff where he came out in a bus, where he powerbombed Shaggy Two-Dope on top of it and tried to save his life, and Shaggy slid off the bus to the concrete. That looked like it hurt. And then, unfortunately, Mike Awesome, he committed suicide several years later in his life.
Mike Awesome, not on the top 25 most underrated by the list.
So underrated. Number 4 for me, Dean Malenko.
Dean Malenko is, interestingly, not on this list. Oh, yeah, number 2.
Number two. The most underrated. I go watch Dean Malenko and Eddie in WCW. Yeah. Go watch Dean Malenko and Jericho. Just go watch Dean Malenko and anybody in WCW at that section of the open curtain jerkers. It's some of the best matches you'll ever see in your life.
By the way, underrated means that they were an amazing talent, but never got the credit they deserved.
They never got the credit
because
they deserved.
We could say, like, John Cena, you can't call him underrated. He got the credit he deserved.
Yeah, he did. And he made the money he did. Yeah.
So number 4 for me.
All right.
Cesaro.
Okay.
Cesaro, which is number 17 on this list. Cesaro, we have said, if I had a number 5, it would have been Brody Lee. We've talked about it ad nauseum in the past.
It's not topical. We saw him live multiple times, and we each said every time we saw him, damn, that guy is so good.
Right. I mean, I would almost go as to say, because I can't say Keith Lee, and I can't say Bray Wyatt, and I can't say...
There's people that are out there right now that we're watching come up that we can't throw in that list right now. But for a new school generation guy who didn't get the credit, didn't get the push, was kind of getting there a little bit with AEW, but yeah. I would agree with you and say Brody definitely got held back.
Cesaro number 4. Cesaro on my list here is
number 17.
Number 17. Thank you.
Number 3 for me, Lance Storm.
Lance Storm. Lance Storm is on my list. I saw it. Number 11 for me. Number 3, Sheamus.
Lance Storm for me personally is, I think he's one of the best talents that has one of the most pure athletic talents you will ever see in the ring. He had absolute amazing matches with it, and he was given some of the absolute worst possible gimmicks you could ever imagine in your life. Like, that man was destroyed, and the fact that he still loves and participates in the wrestling business and has a training school that's very successful, hats off to you, man. I probably would have slit my wrists in a bathtub if I were you, if they made me do what you did in WCW.
Well, just going to go right there, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Number 3 for me, Sheamus. I mean, he maybe he's going to get it.
You know, the more I watch with, I can't say he's underrated because he has gotten a huge push. He's gotten a great...
He's had a championship.
He's made a lot of money. He's on a lot of endorsements. He's gotten a good push for it. I can't say I agree with you and say he's underrated, but I will definitely say that he's not gotten the rating that he should deserve.
Number 11, Lance Storm was number 11, by the way.
Okay. Number 2, Chris Kanyon, or some of you might know him as Mortis in WCW. Chris Kanyon was an absolute amazing talent, extremely athletic, like we're talking about Lance Storm. He was so good that he was the one that they used as training for the Ready to Rumble movie, so he taught Arquette and other actors how to take bumps in that movie. I think Chris Kanyon was an absolutely amazing, underrated performer.
Number 2 for me, William Regal.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
William Regal was an amazing wrestler.
Go watch Regal and Fit Finley.
Kill each
WCW.
other. Kill each other.
And watch that match and tell me if that's not one of the single most brutal matches that is pure English barroom brawl fight you could ever see.
And William Regal is number 6 on the top 25.
All right. Number 1. I have a split. Mine is Cesaro.
Number 17.
And my co-spot for number 1, Shelton Benjamin.
Shelton Benjamin is the number 1 most underrated pro wrestler on the top 25 list.
Never got his just desserts, never got the huge push that he should have deserved. Shelton Benjamin, part of the OVW class, was partnered with Brock Lesnar because he is a true, pure, amazing wrestling talent. And I've never seen anybody not get held. I've never seen somebody get held back so bad next to Lance Storm that's such a talented athlete in that manner.
Really?
Like, Shelton, to me, is... Like, just think of this. How often did we see the graphic at the start of Raw of Shawn Michaels super kicking his head off coming off the top rope?
Yeah.
That was on the front of Raw for what? At least 4 years that I could think of. Maybe even longer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did find Dean Malenko was number 2 on this list. Apologies.
What about Shelton and his mama? Or Shelton with the blonde hair where they made him like the weird, whatever it was.
So, yeah. I would see, I think my number 1 has been the most held back. Because he was given crap and ran with it no matter what. And he never phoned it in.
I peeked at your list real quick.
Goldust.
So would you say Goldust the character or Dustin Rhodes?
Dustin Rhodes.
Okay.
Dustin Rhodes the wrestler.
So I will agree with you and say Dustin Rhodes, yes. Goldust, I will not agree with you. I think Goldust got pushed. I think Goldust got held back because of the Razor problem, where Razor didn't want to be stuck in like a weird homosexual angle kind of that he was doing at the time.
So after they dropped Goldust, even when he was with his brother, Goldust and Stardust, it wasn't... Once Marlena left the picture...
Oh, well, that busted Dustin more than anything, and I don't mean the character for Goldust. I mean, like, Dustin was legitimately fucked in the head after that, and he has admitted he was abusing pills, he was abusing alcohol because of the divorce, because of the issues. But I can't say he's underrated because he's in one of the most talked about WrestleMania matches of all time with the backyard parking lot brawl with Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
I think Goldust has gotten his credit over the years because the way people have talked and built him up. But I will say Dustin, much like Eric Watts and a couple other of the second generation guys that have come along, Yeah, a lot of those guys really.
They went to his brother.
Yeah.
All right, so quick, top 25. Tell me if they're underrated or not.
Okay.
Yes or no, underrated. Disco Inferno.
Fuck no. He's awful overrated. Disco Inferno's trash.
24, Arn Anderson.
Absolutely underrated.
Number 23, Booker T.
I
I don't think he was underrated. He got his due. He was the champion. He's been the six-time.
Unfortunately, Booker was the guy. He was the biggest name that they brought in during the War acquisition, and he was buried pretty hard for about 4 years.
But then he got it back.
And then he got it back. Yeah, but that's kind of like
22,
yeah.
Chris Candido.
Absolutely, Candido was underrated.
Number 21, R-Truth.
R-Truth is number 1 in my honorable mention list. Ron Truth, Ron Killings, K-Quick, whatever you want to say. Him as the NWA World Champion in TNA when they first fired up was absolutely amazing. He was one of the hottest heels that they had. I
can't imagine him as a heel.
I
can't imagine him as a heel.
I loved him when he was NWA World Champion. And you want to talk about a heat magnet of a black champion in a Southern promotion, just who could talk the way that man can talk.
Number 20, Katie Lee.
Katie Lee.
Number 19, Taka
Michinoku. Yeah, absolutely underrated. He should have gotten so much better. He was stuck in the stereotypical ding-dang-dang-dang Japanese that they love to do.
Number 18, Shelton's tag team partner, Charlie Haas.
Charlie Haas, absolutely underrated.
17, Cesaro. Number 16, Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler is in my honorable mentions of overrated.
Agree.
He's overrated in my opinion.
Number 15, Godfather.
No, I'd say he's where he needs to be.
14, Owen Hart.
Yes, underrated for where they pushed him, but he's where he needs to be too in history.
Number 13, most underrated wrestler of all time, Santino Marella.
I wish Jim Cornette would have slapped you 18 times and broke your fucking neck before you ever got in this business.
I heard his story. I actually heard the story about how he wasn't selling for the Boogeyman.
Yes.
I heard the story.
Yes. I wish that you never would have gotten in the business. You are a blight and a stain.
Number 12, Chavo.
Yes, underrated.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Number 11, Lance Storm. Number 10, I don't agree with this one, Kurt Hannick.
Underrated for Kurt Hannick? No, he's considered one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah. Number 9, Fandango.
Yeah, he's underrated. Yeah,
Great.
he got saddled with a horrible gimmick because I can't remember your real name, but damn, he's good.
Number 8, Christian.
Absolutely underrated. And he's been a world champion.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about Randy. We talk about Randy, and I know the internet people lost their shit about this, but his matches with Randy that he had towards the end of his career were some of the absolute best wrestling matches that you would see. It's 9 o'clock, love. On television, and they went for months, and everybody kept complaining, oh my God, why this again? And I thought it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, Christian is absolutely underrated.
7, Goldust. 6, William Regal. Number 5, Jack Swagger. I don't think he was underrated. I don't think he was overrated. He was just...
Some people need to be middle of the card. Upper middle. Yeah.
4, Kane.
Underrated? Well,
I don't think he was underrated.
He probably should have had more longer tenure championships that he had.
He's not underrated.
Because I don't know. Yeah.
Number 3, John Morrison.
Johnny Mundo, yeah.
So, having seen what he can do in Lucha and what I've seen him do and even in Impact, they could do so much more with him.
Well, seeing him live, but then again, after seeing him on Monday Night Raw, I might reject some of this.
Number 2, Dean Malenko, and number 1, Shelton Benjamin. So,
absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and pop out. Most overrated move in all wrestling history is the super kick.
Absolutely, super kick, 100%. I did 5, so the 619 ties to Rey Mysterio. The figure 4 leg lock is incredibly overrated, in my opinion.
I don't know. It hurts.
Any discus lariat, discus punch that I have talked about my dislike before, I think is super overrated. I would never stop what I'm doing in the middle of a fight to do a fucking 360 spin. The atomic drop. I hate the atomic drop. I think it's dumb.
Yeah.
I hate the atomic drop.
What part of that body is it hurting them? Is it hurting the back of the ball?
I think it's supposed to be the tailbone.
I think the butthole. My hole!
Their hole! It's supposed to hurt their hole atomically. And the super kick is number 1. The most underrated moves, I actually did these real quick, so tell me what you think. The traditional pile driver. I don't think there's any move in wrestling that might be considered more dangerous and more effective and won more championships than the traditional pile driver, and I don't think it gets the love that it deserves because we don't get to see it because it is so dangerous.
I disagree that it's underrated. I think it's rated very high, and it's one of those.
The Tombstone is probably very highly rated. The traditional pull-up pile driver drop back.
I'm glad it's not shown.
All right, number 4 for me, to move straight out of my heart, I love the Russian leg sweep. I love the Russian leg sweep. In fact,
it looks nice.
So the finisher that I worked on wrestling was a block,
and that's why it's not. That's why the pile driver is not underrated.
I would say it's underrated.
It's not because you're done.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah, it usually would be an end of match. So my sweep was block, go underneath, cut around, pull the arm I caught, chicken wing it, right? Mm-hmm. Front, Russian leg sweep, drop back.
Okay, nice.
The best part about that is all you have to do to stay safe is put your head right here on my shoulder. I laid so many fucking people out because they would take their face flat, like a flatliner, not realizing that their arm is pulled back. Busted so many people's nose open doing that. Loved it. Number 3, the Death Valley Driver / the Burning Hammer.
Yeah.
I think the Death Valley Driver is one of the coolest moves ever. I wish I could do that on like general people. And the Burning Hammer, I love, and I know why people don't do it because it's super dangerous.
Okay.
Number 2, the Steiner / Rikishi Driver.
Okay.
It's the coolest move. You've seen this, right?
Yep.
I love that move. I think it's absolutely amazing. And the number 1 for me, simple German suplex. The German suplex I consider to be underrated because it just gets thrown out there, and especially now they're just like, German suplex.
Okay, I guess, so if I'm going to throw 2 underrated moves while you're talking, I'm thinking DDT, the traditional old school DDT, back in the day.
Well, that was Jake. It was DDT. You were dead. That's what it was. He killed Ricky Steamboat for, 4 months because of that move? Because Ricky didn't take it right?
The Death Valley Driver.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And, those two
stick out. You know, one of the most underrated, I would honestly say, is just the simple punch. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody can really throw a great working punch that much anymore. The Scorpion Death Drop, totally not biased. Would that be over or underrated? Because... that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the Scorpion Death Drop's really good. The reverse DDT, I like that.
One of the, this isn't on topic, but the coolest finishing move, and I got to see it again during the Women's Royal Rumble, was watching Victoria do her Venom drop.
Oh, the Widow Peak drop, or whatever it's called. Yeah, I love that. You know, it's one of the coolest ones. My personal favorite is the Go to Sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Because picking somebody up on your shoulder and just chucking them into a knee drop, it just looks so brutal.
That will conclude our overrated topic.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Play along. Tell us if we're right. Tell us if we're wrong. Who do you think is the most over or the most underrated superstar? Oh my God, let me rephrase that. Drop a line in the comments and tell us what you think of who might be the most over or underrated wrestler in history, including moves and matches. We didn't even do matches. I said superstars. Fuck. I said superstars.
We neither one of us.
We did not do matches.
Sorry.
Real quick off the top of your head, just fire one out. Overrated for me personally, the
Pajami Prison.
Hogan and Andre.
Oh.
I just don't think it's a special.
Oh, match.
I think it's incredible for what it did, but yeah, that one's pretty overrated for how WWE books it. Underrated match, in my opinion, would probably be...
many. There's so many underrated matches.
It would be the Iron Man match, I think, between Kurt and Brock on SmackDown. I think that's a super underrated match.
I think that if I was going to pick underrated matches, I would say most of the mid-card matches on WCW for the first 5 years it was in business.
Oh, you mean like any match with Dean Malenko we just talked about?
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so that concludes overrated wrestlers and moves. Sorry, not so much on matches. So we're going to go ahead and fire out. This is your Impact Wrestling. So first.